Hi everyone, I'm Luke. Welcome back to day 8 of 100 Days of SwiftUI. Today we're looking at part 2 of functions. Okay, now I'm going to do the test for default parameters. So we have calculate wages. It takes in an int called payband and takes in a boolean called isOvertime, which defaults to false, and it returns an int. So var pay is 10,000 times payband. That's an int, so that's fine. And it doubles it if it's overtime. Returns pay, which is an int, so that's all good. Yeah, this looks valid. Okay, so function play game. It takes in a name, which is a string, and cheat, which is a boolean, which defaults to false. Yeah, this looks like it's valid. Okay, we have a function pack lunchbox. It takes in an int called number. It takes in a boolean called healthy, which defaults to true. So we're doing a range with number, and it's using the boolean. Yeah, this looks valid. Okay, we have a function brush teeth. It takes in a boolean, use floss, which defaults to true. Ooh, it's got a different name down there, so this would not be valid. Okay, we have a function run race, which takes in a distance, which is an int default to 10. Okay, so it's using distance as an int. Yeah, this looks like it should be valid. Okay, we have the function play golf. The parameter is holes, which is a string, and it defaults to 18. It says print, let's play holes of golf. And because it's a default value, it doesn't have to be passed, so this should be valid. Oh, it takes in a string, but the default is actually an int, so yeah, okay. Okay, the function is score goal. It takes in overhead kick, which is a boolean, defaults to false. Okay. And it's been called with the name. Yeah, this should be valid. Okay, the function go to warp, and speed is an int, doesn't have a default value, but it's not actually passing in the speed when the function's being called, so this would not be valid. Okay, the function take picture with flash bool. It's missing the colon after the flash, so this would not be valid. Yeah. Okay, the function's park car. It takes in a string called type. It takes in a bool called automatically, which defaults to true. So it checks automatically. Type is a string, so that's fine. Yeah, this looks like it's valid. Alright, the function's fire arrow. It takes in a skill level, which is an int, and defaults to 1. And it returns a string. So these are print statements of the strings rather than returning the string. So it doesn't actually return anything, so this would not be valid. Okay, the function eat meal, parameters with dessert, is a boolean and defaults to true. Okay, so the parameter up here is with dessert, but it's only passing in a parameter named dessert, so that would not be valid. Yeah. Okay. Still working on it, but we're getting there. Okay, let's go through the test for writing throwing functions. So for this one, we have a building error of type error. The cases are too high or too low. And we've got the function construct building, takes in floors of type int, and it throws errors. So if height is less than 10, we've got the too low error, and if height is greater than 500, it's too high, otherwise it prints perfect. It's got floors, but it's actually referring to height. So that is not the same variable. So I would say that's not valid. Yeah. Okay, we have an enum play error of type error. The case is cheating or no players. The functions play game. A string of type a string called name, and a boolean called cheat, which defaults to false, and it throws errors. So if it's cheating, it'll throw the cheating play error. Otherwise, it'll say, let's play a game of name. That looks valid. Cool. Okay, we have an age error, either underage or unknown age. The function is buy alcohol. It takes in an integer called age. If age is less than 18, it'll print, if age is greater than or equal to 18, it'll print OK. Otherwise, it's going to throw the age underage error. This isn't marked throws when it's throwing an error, so this would not be valid. Yeah. Okay, we have pizza errors with has pineapple error, and a function make pizza, which is a string called type, and it throws. If the type's not equal to Hawaiian, it's going to print the string. Otherwise, it's going to throw the pizza error has pineapple. Yeah, that matches. It declares throws. Yeah, it looks like this is valid. Okay, we have a measure error called unknown item, and a function measure which takes in a string called item name, and it throws and returns a double. So it's going to switch on the item name. All right, with switch statements, they do have to be exhaustive. So if it doesn't cover every possible case, it does have to have a default case, otherwise it'll fail. So yeah, this is not valid. Yes. Okay, we have a charge error, no cable and no power. And we have a function charge phone. It takes in a boolean called at home, and it throws. And if they're at home, it'll print. Otherwise, it's going to throw the charge error, no power. which is a valid error. So I'd say this is valid. Does not. Oh, it's missing the error. Okay. Okay, we have a Wi-Fi error of type error with no network and no signal errors. And the function connects to Wi-Fi. It takes in a string called password, but it can be passed in without the parameter name, and it throws, and it's doing a string comparison. And if it's empty, it's going to throw the Wi-Fi error bad password. Bad password is not in the list, so this is not valid. Okay. We have a print error of type error with an invalid count. Then the function print pages takes in a string called text and an int called count, and it throws. Okay, if count is less than or equal to 0, it's going to throw this invalid count error. That looks good. Otherwise, it's going to loop over the count, printing out the text. Yeah, that looks valid. Okay, we have a login error, unknown user, and a function authenticate, which takes a string called username, and it throws. Okay, so if username is anonymous, it's going to throw the unknown user error. That looks good. Otherwise, it's going to print welcome. Yeah, that looks good to me. Cool. Okay, we have book errors, either too few pages or too many pages, and a function write book. It takes in a string called title and an integer called pages, and it throws errors. So it's going to switch on pages. So if it's less than 50, or if it's 50 or less, it'll be too few pages. That looks good. Between 51 and 400, it's going to print. That's fine. And it does have a default case there too, which will throw too many pages. So that looks good. I think that's valid. Cool. Okay, we have an array error, negate index, and a function read item, which takes in an integer called index, and it can be passed in without the parameter name, and takes in an array of strings called array that is passed in as from, and it returns a string. So if index is less than 0, it's going to throw the negate index. Oh, I guess negative is what that means. Although this isn't marked throws, so it won't actually let you throw. So I don't believe that's valid. Yes. Okay. We have cat problems, either not a cat or unfriendly, and a function stroke cat takes in a string called name and doesn't have to pass in the parameter name when it's called, and it throws errors. So if the name is Mr. Bitey, it's going to return the unfriendly error. If the name is Lassie, then it's going to return not a cat. Otherwise, it's going to put you stroked and then the cat's name. Yeah, this looks valid. Cool. Okay, so still working on it, but I'm getting there. Okay, now let's do the test for running throwing functions. Which of the following are true? Use do to start a section of code that calls throwing functions, or you don't need to catch all errors. Well, you definitely need to catch errors. So, and before you call a section of code that can throw functions, you do need to wrap it in a do block. So it is option 1. Swift won't let you run an error throwing function by accident, or Swift lets you skip adding a catch block when it's safe. No, Switch won't let you run an error throwing function by accident. Yes, you must catch those errors too. You can mark any function as throwing, or you can only define one error enum in your apps. You can mark any function as throwing, and you can definitely do more than one error enum. If any errors are thrown, execution immediately jumps to the catch block, or you should mark all functions as throwing. If any errors are thrown, it does immediately jump to the catch block. That is true. Yeah, and only ones that potentially throw errors need to be marked as throwing. Yeah. Okay, throwing functions must be marked with throws, or you can only call one throwing function inside a do block. You can call more than one, but throwing functions must be marked with throws. Throwing functions can't return values, or throwing functions must be called using try. They can return values, and they do have to be called using try. Awesome, all of those were correct. Okay, now I'm up to checkpoint 4. We're going to be writing a function that accepts an integer from 1 to 10,000 and returns the integer square root of that number. So we're not allowed to use the built-in square root function. We need to do it by brute force ourselves. If the number is less than 1 or greater than 10,000, it throws an out of bounds error. And if it can't find the square root, it throws a no root error. Okay, let's start with a new playground. Call this square root. Okay, let's create our errors. So square root error of type error. And we got the case out of bounds. And case no root. Okay, so let's do a function. Say get square root, and it takes in an integer. Does it return? Returns the integer square root of the number. So this will throw, and it returns an integer. Right. So because it throws, we're going to wrap this in a do catch block. And for when we catch an error, let's just print it out. Make error.localized description. Okay, so for I equals, hold on, let's check if we're out of bounds first. If Maybe of's not a good name. I'll just use it for now. Of is less than 1. So square root error dot out of bounds. What am I doing? Else if of is greater than 10. Actually, what I can do is do an OR. Oh. So we do OR with the pipe character. Get rid of that. Equals 1 to of. If I times I equals of. So this is when it's true, so we're going to return I. If not, then it'll get to of, not finding a square root, in which case we will throw no root, square root error dot no root. Oh. I in. If we get to this point, and if it gets through this and never actually returns an integer there, it's never going to get down here. So let's just return 0. All right, let's see. Get square root of 25. Let's give that a go. Oh, it's not marked with try. It's 5, yeah. Let's do 10,000. 100. Let's do 999. Oh, let's see if it printed the error. Square root error, error 1. Which is the out of bounds error. No, it's not. No root error. Let's use 10,001. That's error 0. Okay, so 0 is the out of bounds error. Actually, we can set this up as catch dot out of bounds. Is square root error dot out of bounds. And we can catch through error. Root. Print. This number has no root. And we'll just do a catch any other error. Print error. Device description. Okay, now let's try it. Number out of bounds. 9999. Or has no square root. Or has no integer square root. Okay. Let's try 625. Uncycled 25, good. Let's try 9. Uncycled 3. Cool, I think we got that working. Alright, thanks for watching. Sorry if that was a bit painful to watch, but we got there in the end. Alright, if you want to follow along, the link is in the description below. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.